Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the Pepper Dynamics Podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pepperdine Graziadio business community. Our guest today is Kimber Wilson. Kimber is a first-year Graziadio full-time MBA student here at Pepperdine. Greetings, Kimber. Thanks for joining us.
Greetings. Thank you for having me. I've been able to listen to many of your podcasts and have really enjoyed getting to know my fellow students that way. So I'm happy to be on the program myself.
Excellent. Well, I am happy to have you on. Now, your background, you have a marketing background. You spent some time with Marriott, some time with Disney, and you also did your undergrad here at Pepperdine. I wonder about Disney and Marriott. I don't know if you worked in Disney with the resorts and of course, Marriott is all hospitality. Like, were those similar experiences or were they widely varied? Disney sounds like a fun place to work, but of course, that's coming from the outside looking in.
Yeah, I think in some ways they're really similar. I mean, as a marketer, a lot of what you do is creating meaningful relationships and experiences for your customers. And I think certainly both of those brands do a really great job at that. And also, partly why I enjoyed working for both of them. To answer your question about, what I did at Disney, I was there for 6 years and I was in a few different departments there. I started in the interactive and consumer products side of the business. I actually was working for a team called Disney Interactive Labs, which they were sort of the think tank within Disney that was ideating kind of test case projects and things like that, and seeing what their viability was before rolling them out to market. So they worked on a project called Disney Life, which was sort of the impetus for what's now Disney Plus. So kind of cool and exciting things like that. But I also did work for Parks and Resorts in one of my roles where I was marketing their digital portfolio. So I worked on the Disneyland app and all of the marketing for that, as well as the launch plans for the Play Disney Parks app. So while I guess I left the interactive and consumer product side of the division, I still kept kind of digital and technology in my back pocket when I transferred over to the resort side of the business. And then that is what led me over to my most recent role prior to my MBA, which was with Marriott. I was with them for 2 years. And I definitely think that was a bit of a different experience because I joined shortly after they had acquired Starwood. And so I was a big part of the integration initiatives, kind of bringing Starwood properties into the Marriott fold. And so that was unique and something that I wasn't experiencing at Disney, going sort of from, family entertainment and experiences to also being part of a Fortune 100 company going through a large acquisition. So that's just kind of a little bit on my professional background and journey, but I'm happy to speak to anything that might interest you.
Yeah, just the difference in environment between Marriott and Disney. How would you gauge environment, especially when you worked at the interactive labs? Seems like a great environment to be in, but talk about the difference in environment, especially when you're in a professional setting and working in marketing.
Sure. Yeah, I think, even at Disney, being on different teams, each had a very different culture and dynamic. I mean, when I started on Disney Interactive Labs, we had a lot of engineers, we had a lot of designers, we had a lot of product managers, and it was very, innovative. It was sort of the incubator within the company. So things were really creative, really fluid. I would say probably the least corporate that they could be in a corporate environment, which I thought was really awesome. We always kind of considered ourselves like the startup within Disney. So that was a really unique side of things. And then I went over to the parks, which was a completely different dynamic. I mean, they're a very well-oiled machine. Everyone has a specific team for something. Nothing is really done at a very scrappy level on the park side of the business. So even just acclimating from one department to another at Disney was a unique experience for me. And then you layer in Marriott, where what I don't think a lot of people know and understand is that Marriott doesn't own the majority of their hotel properties. So they're run by different hotel management companies and they're franchised. And so part of my role was straddling the fence between Marriott corporate and the individual properties and their, unique management companies and owners. And so that was a totally different experience for me when I went over there because, at Disney, we were all kind of one team, one dream. And then you go over to Marriott and you have, people at the property level who have one idea or way of doing things. And then you have the Marriott corporate who has another way of doing things. And so finding that balance was always, really interesting. And it was hard too, sometimes as a marketing partner, because you'd have properties come up with, really innovative or unique ideas, but to align with kind of what Marriott Corporate's objectives were, or, what the branding was for those properties in particular, sometimes you had to say, well, I think that's a really great idea, but no, you can't do that. And that was always an interesting struggle in my role too, and not something that I had experienced as much at Disney, since we were all very insulated
in-house and doing what the brand wanted you to do. Yeah, and I guess as a marketer, you never really want to hear, no, you can't do that, right? That's just not an answer that you want to hear.
Yeah.
ever.
You always try to find creative workarounds, but
right, exactly.
Yeah, it can be challenging.
So thinking about marketing, my philosophy on marketing is that it's probably more important to our personal and professional lives than most people understand. I wonder about your perspective on marketing based on your experience and your education and experience prior to coming to the MBA program.
Sure. I mean, I think marketing plays a crucial role in any organization. They always say that if a product launch fails, you blame the marketing team. But usually if it's going well, then, marketing never hears about it. And so while I don't think that, product launches are always because of what marketing has or has not done, or it might be, a myriad of reasons. I think it just goes to show what marketing's impact is in an organization. And I think, what's really important is that it's just an exciting time to be a marketer with so much more access to digital and data. There's ways for companies to make much more informed decisions now. And, marketers really kind of hold the keys to that information. And so I think that it's really crucial, even for those who are not interested in entering into a marketing role, to be able to understand what insights marketers can unlock about different audiences, or how they can also be a tool and a resource in terms of product development and things like that. I mean, I mentioned that I worked on a lot of app marketing for Disney. And, one of our greatest assets was the fact that we had data coming in every single day about, where people were engaging with our apps, what was most interesting, what their behaviors looked like. And that was very much a part of our strategic marketing plans moving forward, looking at those behaviors and kind of catering both the product and the marketing initiatives to those behaviors. So I think that marketing really has a big kind of say in kind of product development organizations, and also, maintaining relevance for different products and services.
That's interesting what you say about marketing, and thinking about your concentration. At the current moment, you are doing a dual concentration, right? Marketing and the DICE, which is the Digital Innovation and Information Systems. Talk to us a little bit about doing both concentrations. And when we talked offline, you were talking about you may make a choice and just go with one or the other. Give me your insight on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I came into the MBA program thinking that I wanted to be a product marketing manager. And while I'm not sure if that's the path I'll end up in post graduation, the reason I was really interested in that, industry or function in particular was I found that in, my marketing roles, I was using a lot of data to make informed decisions. And I was working in, a lot of tech type of roles, being in the app space and things like that. But I didn't have as strong of a, product background. And I wanted to kind of hone in on some of those skills. And I also wanted to just be more aware of some of, the emerging technology that's out there, and just kind of what the landscape looks like in the coming years and things like that. And I took Professor Mooney's class, which is one of the core courses that's required, and, just really enjoyed that. And that was kind of my first, I dipped my toe into kind of what the DICE concentration looked like. And a lot of those courses have things like product management and project management. They have some analytics courses that also kind of map back to it. And so I thought that would be, really great concentration for me, given my professional interests. And then, from a marketing perspective, because I thought, okay, I maybe want to be in product marketing, that I should perhaps try to do a dual concentration. But what I didn't perhaps understand at the time was that was limiting me from being able to take other elective courses. So as you kind of touched on, will I continue with my dual concentration? And As much as I've enjoyed the courses that I've taken, the few courses that I've taken thus far for both concentrations, I am finding that, part of why I decided to get an MBA is because I wanted to build on my financial acumen, or I wanted to build on my analytical skill set. So I'd like to be able to take an advanced analytics course or a financial modeling course. And so now I'm starting to rethink, well, do I want to continue down the path of multiple different marketing courses, or really kind of pick and choose a few different things that I think might be, new skills that I can acquire?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't declared concentration yet, and I don't know if I am. I kind of want to take a whole bunch of classes in all the different areas, so I'll have to figure that out here pretty soon, right?
It's tough to make the call. You can't go wrong either way, I don't think. I've heard from a lot of second years and people kind of a couple years out post Pepperdine who have said, unless you're really trying to make a career switch and say, okay, I developed skills in this type of industry or function, then maybe a concentration isn't totally necessary. So that's sort of what I kind of go back and forth on too. I think it's great that Pepperdine offers them, but also I think you can't go wrong if you don't declare one.
Right. Now, we've had a couple classes together, and I noticed in class you are not afraid to ask and answer questions when the professors ask for responses, or when other students ask for responses or speak up. Why do you feel like this is important in class, and also probably, I guess, in the professional world?
Sure. Well, I hope I'm not driving my fellow students nuts. In a virtual environment, it can be tough too, because you never know who's going to respond and you don't want to talk over people. So it's always a unique balance. But it's funny. I used to have a coworker who would say that we were building the bike while riding it. So I've been in a lot of situations where, it's either sink or swim and you just got to figure things out. And I've just found, for me, the key has really been answering questions. I mean, of course, you want to be sensitive to not answering or asking too many questions and being strategic. But at the same time, as I kind of alluded to earlier, when I joined Marriott, it was in the midst of their acquisition. And I was the main point person for a variety of former Starwood hotels that were coming into the Marriott fold. And a lot of them, were asking me questions and looking to me as the expert when I probably had less of a clue than they did. Hopefully they don't hear this. But, I found that if I didn't ask questions of my colleagues and experts in their space, then there was just no way that I was going to be a successful partner. And so what I really love about business school is that it's an even safer space to ask questions. I mean, we're all here to learn, and hopefully we're asking the right questions in the classroom so that we maybe save ourselves from asking some questions in the workplace. Not to say that you shouldn't ask questions in the workplace. I'm definitely a big proponent of that, but that's why I don't think that I'm ashamed of asking questions. I mean, we have great resources in our professors, so why not ask questions that pique our curiosity?
I agree with that. I'm a curious person, and I come in with almost 20 years of experience, and so there are things that probably have been programmed in my brain that I'm probably trying to deprogram. So I'm going to ask all the questions to try to fix the synapses in my head and make sure I'm thinking in the right direction. You mentioned, you and I started this program virtually, right? And you're looking at Zoom and you're sitting in 4-hour classes, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing. But we've been doing it virtually since the beginning. And I think coming up this fall, campus will probably open up and we have the opportunity to be on campus. Is there anything you're looking forward to when campus opens up and we're in class in real seats?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, the most basic answer, which I'm sure most people would say, is I'm looking forward to meeting my classmates. But I think that, most people join MBA programs for both the academics and the camaraderie. My husband got his MBA, and I've just seen kind of the power in, the network that he built. And he's 8 years out of his program. And, some of these people are still his very best friends. And I feel like we've gotten to build some great relationships with classmates virtually, but nothing really compares to being in person. And it sounds so silly, but one of the things that I've been saying I really miss the most is just those sidebar conversations that you get to have in the hallway before or after class. And I think that those conversations, while they may be small in nature, they reveal a lot about people. And I just don't think that the virtual environment lends itself to those types of interpersonal reactions. So that's really important to me and something that I want to focus on when I get on campus. And I think meeting students from other programs too. I mean, we've had a lot of exposure to people in our cohort or in our core classes, but there are other programs at Graziadio, and those students, I'd love to meet as well. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to. And I guess lastly, which this one's kind of a silly one, but in undergrad, one of the things that students really enjoyed doing was going out for Taco Tuesdays in Malibu. They have like Duke's and Cafe Habana, and it was just such a fun kind of informal way to hang out with friends and decompress from a stressful school day. And so I'm just looking forward to those kinds of interactions with my classmates. It's part of why I joined a program beyond the academic level. And so I'm looking forward to getting into the swing of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the colleagues, the cohort, the alumni, the professors, they are one of the major reasons why I wanted to get an MBA, right? I wanted to expand my network beyond what the network I already had. So I am looking forward to being on campus and meeting people in person and talking to the people that I probably will never see in class because for whatever reason, we aren't on the same course or aren't on the same track. So I'm looking forward to being on campus too.
I would say too, even, from a networking perspective, I feel that I thrive more in in-person interactions than I do in the virtual space. And while I think that virtual has allowed us to maybe connect with or hear from people in different industries much more than we would otherwise, I think at the same time, my personality just lends itself more to face-to-face interactions. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I'll be able to build some more authentic relationships in that way.
You think about the MBA, you come in, you learn the hard skills in terms of finance, and you mentioned data analytics, leadership. Of course, at Pepperdine, sustainability in corporate responsibility is important, and a number of other areas that are on the docket for people who come specifically here to Pepperdine Graziadio. And I wonder I think you might have touched on this earlier, actually, why you were interested in these things when you were making a transition from working in the field to you give up the experience you have, and it sounds like you were going down a path and working towards various levels of seniority, but you give that up to come in as an MBA student. I wonder what aspects of all those things were you interested in, and I guess to say in addition to the data analytics part when you transition to a grad student.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you asked that question too, because I'll even admit, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but, I had some friends that I didn't tell until the very last second, like, oh, I'm going to get my MBA, because I knew their reaction was going to be, well, why? I mean, you've spent 8 years at really awesome companies in marketing. And as a marketer, you don't need to have an MBA. So, why are you doing that? And I do think that a lot of people who pursue MBAs are maybe more interested in entrepreneurship, or they're maybe more interested in finance or industries like that, I guess, if you can call entrepreneurship an industry, and you maybe don't see as many marketers as you would other roles. But for me, I know as a marketer how important it is to speak the language of the finance team. You need to be able to sell them on your idea. You need to be able to tell them what the return on investment is going to look like. You need to lay it out for them in the language that they speak. And while I kind of grew to understand what that language was, at the same time, I felt like, being in an MBA program where I'm taking finance courses, it would just make me that much more effective as a marketer. And the same thing from the analytical side of things. I mean, you can be a creative marketer and maybe you don't need to use the data, but at the same time, how much more impactful can you be when you make more informed marketing decisions with data? And I mean, these are skills that I was acquiring through my 8 years of experience. But at the same time, I just thought that nothing could be nearly as impactful as, going back to school and having the opportunity to ask questions in a safe space. I mean, that's the other thing is I'm a huge planner, and I, like to map things out, and I like to learn things in, for better or worse, sometimes very specific ways. And I just, wasn't confident in those skills in the workplace. And I wanted to be more confident. I wanted to set myself up for success. And one of the things I've always loved about school is that, if you work hard enough, and you're likely to achieve a good outcome. In the workplace, that's not always the case. I mean, you may try so hard. I used to work in PR, and, in PR, they say marketing, you pay for it, PR, you pray for it. So, despite how hard you work, you might just have a flop. And so what I've liked about school is that it's a safe environment to build these schools so that you're hopefully setting yourself up for the best outcome when you're actually, in your career and in an organization. And so that was my rationale for wanting to come back to school. I would also say too, you mentioned leadership, and I have had a lot of responsibility in my former roles. I mean, leading a lot of go-to-market strategies and just working for such large companies. I've worked in many cross-functional type of roles. However, I don't have as much direct people management experience. So for me to Pepperdine's focus on, best for the world leaders and just kind of building on that aspect was really important for me as well.
Yeah, hopefully you get the outcomes that you're looking for while you're here. There are some great leadership classes. I've just actually wrapping one up this semester, which I thought was excellent, leading in innovation or something along those lines. I think it was an excellent class.
Oh, very cool. Well, we'll have to offline about that. I definitely look forward to hearing more.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll ask this final question actually, and then we'll wrap. Some of us, our past dictates where we're going to go in our future, and our experiences dictate what we're going to do in our future. And I, for one, am hoping that this MBA gives me an inflection point to decide what direction I want to go in my future. Do you see yourself going into the same type hospitality, entertainment area, or in terms of marketing, or where do you see yourself going once you leave Graziadio?
So that's a awesome question, one that I wish I had a great answer for. If I had told you coming in, like I mentioned, I thought I was going to go into product marketing post MBA, and it is still very much an appealing, type of role for me. However, also what I've loved about this experience is that I've been in marketing for 8 years, so I've kind of had my head down and been on that path, and I haven't had a reason to take a step back and think, okay, what might I be interested in that isn't marketing? And I actually, through Pepperdine alums and also second year students, got to know Bank of America. And I'm going to be doing my summer internship with them in a leadership development type of program. And, had you asked me coming in if I would have seen myself, pursuing that, I probably would have said no. But that's one of the beauties of this program, is that by connecting with other students and getting exposure to things less familiar to me, that became, a really appealing opportunity. I actually had gotten secured a marketing internship with a Fortune 500 company, and I was on the fence. I was like, well, do I take that? It's what I know, or do I go into, a banking type of leadership development role, which is totally different than what I thought I was going for coming in. But I also think that's really important for me to make the very best final decision is, I already know what I'm getting by being in marketing. And so I don't know what I'm getting by getting exposure to other industries. And there's no perfect time than now to use an MBA to kind of experiment a little bit. So that's what I'm definitely treating my summer internship as, and hoping that after that, I'll have a more, direct idea of what it is I want to be doing post MBA.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea, and it'll probably be an excellent experience. Kimber, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the Pepper Dynamics podcast.
Thank you for having me. Great to talk to you.
That was Kimber Wilson. She is a first-year full-time Graziadio MBA student. And of course, this is Ty Brown with the Pepper Dynamics podcast. This is the podcast where we recruit, retain, highlight, and inform about the Pepperdine Graziadio business community. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.